This is Sybert signing into Red Alert 3 on the map Cabana Republic, and spawning as the Cyan Allies. On the left side, this is YuiYui. He is currently playing for Team NACL, although when this was played, I don't know if he was. And on the right side is the Purple Allies from Team TNG, the next generation. It is Zokker. Certainly two top allied players, at least when this was played, and this is from the main event, number 3 main event. That is right, it's a best of 7. Zokker fought his way through the lower rounds. I believe he was a ladder qualifier this time around and made it all the way up. Regardless, he is here in the main event versus YuiYui, our Cyan Allies, who indeed is the champion from main events number 1 and 2. And then, of course, the winner of this, if it's YuiYui, he'll collect an additional $25. Or if it's Zokker, then he will have the opportunity to perform in the main event number 4, which at this point has already happened. Of course, I live cast main event number 4, but that'll be for another time and day, because I'll upload those games after this one. And as for now, of course, you can check out CNC Online, which is just launched about a week ago at this point, and hopefully it won't be too long before these videos end up getting up. But yeah, CNC Online is indeed up, and so you can check out my video tutorial of that if you haven't. The GameSpy servers are actually still online, surprisingly enough. Almost a full week after EA said that they would be going down, they are still up, which is really quite odd, but we just don't know when they're going to be going down. Zokker has indeed claimed his oil derrick. YuiYui has not done the same. Now, YuiYui and Zokker, in some ways, these two players are very similar. Both of them are very close to being hyper-aggressive if they are not hyper-aggressive. But YuiYui loves to also play out the macro game, and so he is a bit of a wild card, not in the same sense as I would say C9Q9MD. C9Q9 is a different sort of wild card, while Zokker is more likely to turret push than any other top allied player at this point in the game, I would say. Although recently, as of recording this, Zokker isn't really playing too much, so I guess he's maybe the least likely to turret push, but that aside, both of these players are players who are not afraid to cheese. A nice kill there by Zokker, going to be cleaning up an engineer, and really Zokker won the early infantry war, and as long as he can get either a Vindicator over here to take out a couple of wall segments, or Javelin Trooper, or maybe even an IFV if he wants to go that far, but as long as he starts taking out some of these wall segments, he can start doing some serious damage to YuiYui, and this could be good game right up here in the next couple of minutes. It's not a guaranteed sort of good game, but this economic damage that is done could be enough to snowball into a bigger victory for Zokker. Zokker, of course, already has the victory in the oil derrick. He, of course, got the kills on a lot of Peacekeepers as they were trying to take that middle ground. He got the kill on the engineer. He's now stopped harvesting for YuiYui, bringing YuiYui down to less than half of the eco that Zokker is currently sitting on. Less than 1/3 of the eco that Zokker is currently sitting on, as Zokker establishes himself a 3rd refinery and pushes forward, which is most likely going to be a turret push, which may end the game. Now, YuiYui can try a couple of different things. Number 1, get up Vindicators and try to defend the air. That's going to be very expensive. Number 2, go Tier 2 and try to get Assault Destroyers out. This can, of course, be shut down relatively quickly by Cryocopters if we end up seeing Tier 2 out of Zokker. Now, Zokker doesn't have the opportunity to go Tier 2 just yet, but he can produce an extra command post to go ahead and tech that airfield up to Tier 2, but for now, he's just going to be sticking with those Vindicators, which is probably the best cost-effective choice considering he's already got the Vindicators produced. But from here, it's of course going to be a bit difficult for YuiYui to really hold off in the next couple of minutes without establishing his economy and matching that of Zokker. He's up to that two ore refineries, and he has taken out the oil derrick, but he's still way behind in the air army, and that of course means that, well, he's also way behind in the Peacekeeper numbers, which in combination, that air army and the Peacekeepers that Zokker already has, and, you know, turrets if that ends up being a factor here. Wow, four refineries up for Zokker already. At any rate, basically, the long and the short of it is that Zokker is pretty far ahead in almost every conceivable way. They're on pretty similar techs, but considering that Zokker is basically on the front door of YuiYui and throwing down an armor facility at the front door of YuiYui, that is just a bad situation for YuiYui to be in. Of course, YuiYui can come back from incredible situations, and we've seen in the past the sort of very mobile style that YuiYui has. Goodbye one power plant, and another power plant does take a bit of damage, although YuiYui did get the sell-off there, which is quite nice. But we've seen, particularly in the Christmas finals of YuiYui versus Dancall, we saw highly mobile games where almost every game was a super fast turret push from YuiYui. We saw some crazy, just like base pushes that turned into base swaps, that turned into just running around bases. A nice move here by Zokker, going to be deploying that command hub. But again, the economics of this game just are not very difficult to see the differences of, and I'll be curious to see exactly what is happening with the two players in the economics tab after the game, as another power plant does go down. No sell-off there for YuiYui. As you can see, it takes just over two Vindicators. It takes like 8 bombs or something, 7 or 8 bombs to take down a power plant. And we may actually have a cryocopter moving out across the field at some point, but again, he'd have to deploy a command hub to tech up that airfield. There's going to be the turret, and oh, well, cryo shot is pretty good as well, just to help even things up, and YuiYui may very well have a cryo shot to use of himself, but is he actually going to be able to do any real damage with it? Goodbye barracks, which means no engineer for that oil derrick. YuiYui just being put even further behind. He was able to force the sell-off of that refinery, but really, it was just a bad situation with almost no way for YuiYui to come back. He has been defeated, and Zokker takes a pretty convincing 1-0 lead against the allied terror of YuiYui. Now, we are going to be jumping into another game. Zokker is 1 game up. It is by no means over. This series is not sealed, and YuiYui is a very tough opponent who's got some incredible strategies and some crazy micro. So he can certainly make it happen, but we will have to be checking out exactly what is going to be happening after this match. And of course, let's take a quick look at the resources graph. Okay, we've got a huge division there. Let's actually take a look at the numbers. Ore collected 10,000 credits of difference in 6 minutes is actually pretty darn good, because if you look at the breakdown per minute, 1,700 credits per minute more. That's a Vindicator and a half more per minute of income that Zokker had over YuiYui, and of course that comes down to the early infantry victory over that refinery, forcing YuiYui to sell that off. He didn't get that second refinery, which was kind of his third refinery, established for quite a while, and then of course by that point Zokker had 3 refineries and then 4 refineries plus the oil derrick, and things just did not go well. So Cabana Republic out of the map pool, but TNG Zokker is not up completely just yet. He's not out of the woods just yet, and YuiYui still an opponent to be feared, so we're going to be heading into the next game. Don't go anywhere. Which takes us to Infinity Isle for game number 2, and we have, as the Cyan Allies on the left side, currently down 0-1, is YuiYui. Of course, from NACL. Again, I don't think he was on NACL when he played these games, but his opponent on the right side, it's TNG's Zokker. Alright, so there's the walling in of that first power plant, and of course it is going to be only a single racks, which some players do like to go for the dual racks on this, and of course YuiYui's power plant and walls would indicate that he's not going for an airfield cheese either. And there's going to be the walls for Zokker as well. Dog going to be heading around the north side for Zokker, the south side for YuiYui, which means they may be getting scouts off, although the counter scout is coming out from Zokker. And of course, if you send a dog up on the ridge, you can actually get pretty good vision range, almost down to like half of the base if you get all the way across the ridge. Then you get really just ridiculous amounts of vision. There's the nice bark coming from Zokker. Of course, these players might have had a little bit of lag, I'm not entirely sure, or YuiYui just wasn't quite paying attention, or Zokker simply just got the better control in that scenario. At any rate, Zokker is going to be getting the complete scout off. YuiYui is going to be playing in the dark, which is very dangerous against a player like Zokker. You never know what Zokker is going to be doing, and we're going to need to take a look at exactly what Zokker produces out of his barracks to try to gain some knowledge, then an advantage that YuiYui would like to have, but he does not have. He hates playing in the dark, and I mean, he is positioning his Pyrrha Prospector Those are not prospectors, peacekeepers, in such a way that he might almost be able to see what's coming out of the barracks. Because if you start seeing javelin troopers and they're heading back this way, then you know it's very likely going to be some sort of javelin trooper riptide combo. Doesn't always happen in AVA, since of course fast vindicators can end riptides pretty darn quickly. But Zokker going to be distracted for a little bit here, but YuiYui is maybe going to be able to sneak by into the main base. If he does, it's going to be a slaughter for sure, because there's no way Yui's going to be able to really do all that much. And YuiYui does get pretty much completely scouted, and Zokker will be knowing that YuiYui is headed for that third base on the high ground, and Zokker is going to have a delayed third refinery, but he's going for the turret push. He's got a lot of infantry on the back end of this, and also in the south side, that's a dog, so he doesn't actually have a riptide out on the water. I'm not actually sure what he was producing a little bit earlier, unless it's just really slowly producing. At any rate, he would really like to have something other than just this MCV here to tank the shots. YuiYui getting a pretty nice concave here. A couple of javelin troopers are not what you want in this situation. The multi-gunner turret getting taken out pretty quickly, but a lot of peacekeepers are going down. The stutter step from YuiYui could maybe be a little bit better, and also pulling some of these reinforcements from the other side would have been a better choice, but Zokker does survive. He is behind economically, and YuiYui does have an opportunity to maybe make a slight push and do some damage. Going for this oil derrick would be a nice move, pushing in with a couple of javelin troopers and some infantry, some peacekeepers in here to try to poke away at that Whoa! Okay. Is he going to just sell off this MCV and then make YuiYui think that he went all in? This is so bizarre. So Zokker goes for a second MCV, tees up a multi-gunner turret, so he drops down one multi-gunner turret. Is he going to drop down another one? Okay, so he does. So YuiYui, if he saw that, if he was paying attention to the timing, then he definitely knows exactly what just happened. Two multi-gunner turrets, that's 1,600 credits, plus a couple of peacekeepers, and of course the cost of the barracks, but he didn't actually kill all that much. If he kills the refinery, it might be worth it. But this crazy strategy coming out from Zokker is definitely not something you see very often. It's almost like it's C9 playing with strats like this. And yeah, that MCV has taken a lot of damage, but these multi-gunner peacekeeper turrets are going to be enough to stave off a lot of this damage coming in from those peacekeepers, and the javelin troopers do all get cleaned up, but they do clean up at least one of the multi-gunner turrets, and oh my word, Zokker is actually going to survive. What in the world? Cryocopters are out, and Vindicators are going to be allowing as YuiYui to do ridiculous amounts of damage. Nice bomb splitting there, exactly what he needs in this moment. He cannot really afford to mess up too much here, and going for a third out on the water would actually be a really nice move. Of course, it'll limit any attack options that Zokker has as far as infantry goes, since he has to move his MCV out there if he wants to actually do damage with the turrets. And other than that, maybe YuiYui just pulls back the cryocopters to try to freeze down the MCV, but it takes so long. Oh no, the engineer is going in for the cap. Can YuiYui actually just crush the engineer, or is he going to be having to deal with this in other ways? The prospector is brought off the line, and go. Okay, so he gets the kill on the engineer, but he has to sell off well, his second engineer. So he has to actually sell off the airfield, and actually it looks like YuiYui okay, so he freezes down the engineer. He's just barely staying alive during all this. One Vindicator out on the land, but you have to remember, if that Vindicator runs out of shots, then of course, I guess Zokker lost? I don't know. I guess Zokker lost that. I can't imagine that YuiYui left in that sort of situation. Of course, YuiYui did only have that one Vindicator out on the right side there, but as soon as it drops that third bomb, I believe it dropped two already because of the prospectors, but as soon as it drops that third bomb, if the airfield doesn't get rebuilt, then it goes down. So that is pretty much the end of that Vindicator if YuiYui did not rebuild that airfield. But if Zokker left that game, I would not be surprised. If YuiYui left that game, however, I would be very surprised. So we're going to be counting this 1-1, unless it turns out that I'm wrong and actually Zokker left that game. But again, yeah, Zokker in a very bad situation. YuiYui handling that pretty well, but Zokker really just wasn't able to make the points of attack work and really do massive damage that he needed. It took him way too long to take down those refineries. And then, of course, he did lose quite a bit of infantry. He spent a lot of money building that MCV early on, and kind of a weird strat. It would have been neat if it worked, but it did not, so maybe he'll be able to make that work later on. But we're going to be jumping into game number 3 of this best of 7. Alright, welcome to Snowplow for game number 3. It should be a 1-1 tie between the man in the top side. This is YuiYui. NACL's tying it up And of course, TNG in the bottom side, the representation of Zokker, is down here. And who is going to be taking this best of 7? Of course, AVA is a strong point for both of these guys. My word, Zokker is on point with his dog micro. Pretty much every single game, he is 3 for 3 in terms of early dog scouting kills. He knows exactly where YuiYui's dogs are going to be, and then he cuts them off, takes them out, and just eliminates that threat very easily. Looks like the engineer is going to have a slight delay in getting over to that oil derrick. Dual racks opener from, it looks like, both of these players, and they went for the same sort of dual rack, something I don't know that I've ever seen. At least it's less common than just dual racks right through the middle of the map. That's a little bit more common than this sort of dual rack split that you see. Sometimes you do see players throw down a racks over here, produce a couple of, throw down a racks over here, produce a couple of javelin troopers and take down those bridges pretty early on. But for now, both of these players are going to be just going for a fair amount of peacekeepers. Wouldn't be surprised to see a couple of javelin troopers here or there, but at any rate, 1-1. Tying things up, and of course these players, they're starting to get a little bit of sense for the other player's style, but not a huge sense. Of course, they should already know what it's like to play against each other since they both ladder quite a bit. And I know Zokker has been playing quite a bit with, multiple 2 to 3 accounts in the top 10 pretty much every month. And except for these last couple months because he hasn't been playing quite as much. But when this was played, he was playing quite a bit. And both of these players may very well be grabbing themselves some oil derricks. That engineer went a little bit too far for Zokker, but he'll be able to get around. Or he just went this way, which I guess the low ground route is an option. So anyways, these players should be familiar with the other player's style and know that they both like these sort of very aggressive, pushy styles. And while this may look like a turret push, this may not actually formulate into a full-on turret push for another couple of minutes, as this aggressive MCV placement is very common on Snowplow, of course, with the insane build radius of the allied MCV. You get kind of this great position where you can throw down a refinery here and then also defend it way up here. As you can see, just a lot of build radius on that MCV. And of course, Zokker got there first. He had a power plant down by the time that YuiYui even deployed his MCV, and now YuiYui is being forced to cancel whatever was building and then go ahead and move his MCV out of range of Zokker so that he can go ahead and start rebuilding there. But it looks like he's just going for a right side turret push. These MCVs crossing past each other. They're going to be looking at each other and thinking, I wish I had some guns so I could shoot the other guy, but they cannot. Indeed, nice bomb splits from, well, that's not the right key. We actually want to go like that. Bring up some health bars. Nice bomb splits from each player. It looks like maybe slightly better from a YuiYui. I'm not entirely sure because I wasn't paying attention, but Vindicator also is going to be getting shot down. That Apollo earning its keep, and goodbye Vindicator almost. That is one of the world's luckiest Vindicators, as the MCV is deploying and also invisible until it comes back on land. There we go, it comes on back. Slight bug there of Red Alert 3. And I guess we're going to see a base swap. I mean, the Vindicator looks like it did get shot down. Zokker going for the Apollos was definitely a nice move, and he was able to knock down one of the wall segments with, I believe, one of his Vindicators. And now it's just going to be sort of a clean and sweep procedure from each player. It looks like YuiYui did lose his oil derrick, which is a slight benefit to Zokker. And until YuiYui actually gets a Vindicator or a Javelin Trooper over here, or maybe even a multi-gunner turret if he goes that route, he's not going to be able to actually start knocking on... throws down the refinery into low power mode, and that turret is not going to be doing anything at all. Zokker is going to be able to drop a couple of bombs here. We'll clean up one of the Peacekeepers. And it looks like, he was able to save one bomb, so he was able to drop an extra bomb there. But Zokker is doing a much better job of cleaning up the base of YuiYui. Of course, YuiYui does have that third refinery already established, but it is going to be getting taken out pretty quickly here. YuiYui pulling a couple of Peacekeepers off the line to try to deal with this. But he is going to be able to scare Zokker away, at least for now. Zokker, at the other hand, has cleaned up one refiner. The second one is going to be going down momentarily here. It does get eliminated, handing off some veterancy to a couple of those Javelin Troopers, and hopefully Zokker controls well enough to keep those Javelin Troopers alive. There goes one refinery for Zokker. YuiYui finally going to be able to clean up some of these prospectors and collectors, well, some of the ore refineries and prospectors of his opponent. If they escape, Zokker could be using them to deploy some stuff later on. Zokker goes for one multi-gunner turret, trying to eliminate the one that I think was a little bit healthier, but it doesn't really matter because the walls have already been knocked down, and unless Zokker wants to spend the cash to try to rebuild those last few wall segments, YuiYui is going to be able to knock down that other refinery. Zokker, though, I don't know what sort of economics he's on just yet. Okay, so he was able to eliminate that refinery of YuiYui's, which is going to be very good. So he's on just that one refinery. No, he's technically on 2 for a couple of more loads, but soon to be just 1. Nice sell-off there by YuiYui. Zokker does lose that Vindicator, and also on the south side there, we do have the Prospector going to be escaping out to the water for a potential expansion. Could go ahead and sell off that multi-gunner turret. I'm not sure how much use he's actually going to be getting out of it. And the Peacekeepers inside of that civvy structure are going to be eliminating that airfield. It's just in range of that structure, and it will be going down. It does get destroyed. No sell-off there for Zokker. So now, oh, this could actually be very bad if that Vindicator doesn't have anywhere to land, and it may very well be going down before an airfield is actually constructed. You do need an airfield on the field, on the ground. You don't necessarily have to have it, you know, within range of the Vindicator as long as it's there. Nice kill there by YuiYui, going to be taking out that Prospector. And did he get it in time? No, just a little bit too late there. 1,200 credits down the drain. YuiYui deploying a command post in the top right side. Zokker in the bottom left side. And also on the bottom right side, he does have another command post, which may very well be swinging on up north. And as you can see, just a lot of heroic status is being passed around the place. Both of these players getting quite a few veteran and heroic units mixed into their armies. Another couple of heroic and even an elite guy over here. A couple more heroic peacekeepers. So both of these players already in a very weird position, as they are going to have to try to expand outwards and away from their opponent, since the middle ground is pretty torn up. YuiYui trying to establish something, but oh, those 2 heroic javelin troopers. 1 goes down, and now this elite peacekeeper will most likely be able to finish off that heroic javelin trooper, and goes heroic himself. Very sad state there for Zokker. Zokker does deploy an ore refinery in the bottom left, but it is bugged. Oh no, Zokker, figure that out. That's very difficult to tell most of the time, especially since it's hard to actually see the dot on the minimap because of how large the ore node logo is on the minimap. Although Zokker may be able to clean up a power plant. Will YuiYui sell it off in time? No, he will not. Fully heroic status for a couple more of those, while elite and heroic status for a couple more of those peacekeepers. And nice bomb splitting by Zokker cleans up 2 of the peacekeepers with at least 2 of the bombs, maybe 3 bombs. I wasn't exactly paying attention. But both of these players doing a very good job of being cost-effective with their units. And it looks like Zokker and YuiYui will continue on with this game. Zokker will discover that YuiYui actually has a command hub already established here, which means the command hub from Zokker could be getting focused relatively quickly, but there is no multi-gunner turret queued for Zokker. Let's see about YuiYui. He does have something building in the defenses tab, so it's most likely a multi-gunner turret. Zokker does get that command hub back, or that Prospector back online, and of course, if he does take damage on that ore refinery, he can, of course, turn that into a command hub. Again, YuiYui going to be losing his refinery, which is over here in this area. He should just go ahead and sell off the multi-gunner turret. He's not actually going to be able to save this ore refinery. He might be able to get a couple of kills here, but even so, oh my gosh, he's actually going to be able to save it. Call me stupid because I made the wrong call. Silly commentator, who do you think you are, calling the sell-off of that ore refinery and multi-gunner turret? But no! YuiYui was able to save it, so props to him. I doubted his abilities, but as you can tell, he did a pretty good job. I really have no idea which one of these players is ahead in this game. YuiYui, he's got 1, 2, not 3, almost 3, I guess. He's got 3 refineries? No oil derricks, and then Zokker's got 1, 2, 3. No here, so I guess he's got 3, not quite 4 either. YuiYui does actually get a multi-gunner turret down in time to save that. Of course, no build radius, so we'll see how important that multi-gunner turret is in the future, but for now, it's not really going to be doing a whole lot. And these Vindicators, one of them goes fully heroic, which does add some nice DPS to that Vindicator to be able to eliminate buildings and units that much more quickly. And I'm not actually sure if it significantly drops the number of bombs you need to kill a Peacekeeper or not, because if so, I mean, you need like 3 bombs to kill a Peacekeeper just with a regular Vindicator, so being able to drop that down, or is it 2? I don't actually remember, because Imperial Warriors are like 2, and then Peacekeepers is 3, or it's the other way around. Conscripts are 1 because they're terrible, but That's just testing the micro of the allied player, see if you can split the bombs that ridiculously. Vindicator does get a couple of shots off there, and a little bit of damage taken on one of the Vindicators won't mean a whole lot, but YuiYui does go ahead and deploy another multi-gunner turret very quickly there. And again, nice bomb splittings by both of these players, going for the Peacekeepers, eliminating as many as possible. And of course, that's just the sort of things that you expect to see out of top allied players, but sometimes, again, Red Alert 3, not exactly the best netcode in the world. It's not exactly the most optimized game in the world, and sometimes with lag, it is quite difficult to get the bomb splits just perfect throughout the majority of games. Of course, these games could very well be from fairly lag-free, as these players are both from Europe, and I'm not exactly sure what sort of cons they've got, but they probably both have pretty good connections. So maybe it's lag-free and I'm just making up stuff about this bomb-splitting lag, but sometimes, for some players, it's really quite difficult. And of course, when you think about how important bomb splitting is to top allied players, when it really can be the difference between like life and death and winning and losing a game, with how efficient these players can get with some of their units and their tactics, you know, sometimes the lag is what makes the difference. Cryoblast going to be firing off, and it looks like, unfortunately, YuiYui didn't... Oh, wait a second. I'm not actually sure whose Peacekeepers those were that got frozen down there, but a couple of them did explode at the last moment there, and a couple more Peacekeepers and a multi-gunner turret does get eliminated there by Zokker. Zokker may very well be able to make the final push enough to happen. May make his final push enough to push Yui out of this game or something like that, but at the same time, Yui going to be getting himself a ranked up Apollo. Can he actually stop the onslaught? He does get a multi-gunner turret down and does drop a Peacekeeper inside of it. However, Zokker, as you can see, loses pretty minimal numbers of Peacekeepers. Of course, you have to remember, with perfect control, you'll never lose anything to an MCV. As I say, perfect control, 3 Javelin Troopers do go down the drain, and a Peacekeeper as well. But with perfect control, since the MCV is slower than the infantry, you won't actually lose anything. Of course, they can get caught on terrain and that sort of thing, and that can cause you to lose units, or you can just accidentally, maybe sometimes you click and sometimes you get a little bit of lag so it doesn't register the click. Whatever the case may be, it is technically possible to not lose anything, but in this case, Zokker, with a couple of mistakes there, will be unfortunately losing some infantry. YuiYui holding off the majority of the damage from this attack. Until he starts losing ore refineries and collectors, he hasn't really lost too much. Of course, losing barracks is especially annoying when you've really got limited numbers of forces, but it's better than losing ore collectors and that sort of thing. He, of course, does still have this base up in the top. Well, never mind. He doesn't actually have that base up in the top left side anymore, as he does just sell it off there, and that may be the fire sale that signals the end of the game for Yui. Nice block there with the multi-gunner turret. Is going to be blocking off that Javelin Trooper and forcing him to retarget, as Zokker is going to be doing a little bit more damage to that. Yeesh, almost lost the ore refiner. The barracks does come up here and powers down the multi-gunner turrets of YuiYui, and the Vindicators coming in for Zokker are going to be having enough bombs to finish off that ore refiner. That Vindicator will take a fair amount of damage, and actually if it flies over any more anti-air units of Yui, it will end up going down, but Yui unfortunately does not have anything else to take down that final Vindicator, and YuiYui is pretty much down to just this one ore refinery on the right side of the map here. Zokker currently sitting at 1, 2, 3, and then I think 4 and 5 are up here as well. Yeah, so Zokker is actually on really solid eco right now. Of course, an extra oil derrick would be nice, but it looks like YuiYui is going to be losing his final ore refinery there. He does still have the Prospector, which means, oh no, he does have this ore refinery over here, but it's not actually doing anything, as there goes 2 more power plants. Low power mode pretty much forever for YuiYui at this point. Unfortunately for him, he's not going to be able to do too much else in this game unless he gets some seriously good moves. He should be noticing this Prospector is off the line relatively soon here, as he is. I mean, he just sold something off, so he's definitely looking over here, and he puts the Prospector back to work. He lost, 30 seconds to a minute of mining time, which is very unfortunate there. And the power plant does go down in the very, very south part of that map. Oh, YuiYui, unfortunately, just getting completely blocked off by that multi-gunner turret, unless he's got one of his own queued. Oh, and actually, okay, no, that Prospector's from somewhere else, but hopefully this doesn't actually bug out too much more. Sometimes collectors get in like really weird paths, and they just like add extra mining time for themselves, and they'll just run off along the side and then come back in. Annoying things like that sometimes do indeed happen. Look at that. Zokker up to tier 2. He's got Guardian tanks. He could actually be producing spies as well. I guess we should check out these health bars just to see if there's any spies for either one of these players. Multi-gunner turret could end up going down. There's quite a few javelin troopers here. Of course, you can see the splash damage is pretty effective. Nice save there by YuiYui. And of course, Zokker is going to be selling off that multi-gunner turret, but he doesn't actually get too much cost out of it. $96 is not likely going to be the difference between this game. One lone peacekeeper on the left side of the map here for YuiYui. And YuiYui actually was able to save that command hub. I have no idea how, but he was able to save that command hub. A Riptide heading out to the left side of the map, and sells off the multi-gunner turret and the command hub, which means that expansion on the left side there is pretty much doomed to be dropped by this Riptide. We'll have to see if the YuiYui can get anything out over there, but I don't think he has. I don't think he's on an airfield even on the map. A couple of Guardian tanks could be going down here, but it's just a lot of crushes. Yeesh. That was total decimation there for YuiYui. Zokker just crushing everything. And Zokker will be taking game number 3, and that may very well be doing it for part 1. We've, of course, got more games to come in the next part of this series. This is a best of 7, and it's only 2-1. Remember, either one of these players does need 4 games to go ahead and make it happen, but there's still time for a comeback for YuiYui. He's down 2-1, or I should say 1-2 against Zokker. But again, YuiYui, he's come from behind, and he has certainly powered through series with incredible ease previously, so do not count him out just yet. 16 minutes of action. Very unusual game, and I think at least 1 base swap happened there, maybe even 2 in the total of that game, and a lot of just hunting around for harvesters, for peacekeepers, and just for little advantages between these two players. But in the end, resources, 10,000 difference between these two players. A little bit more of a higher eco game for these guys compared to what we saw a little bit earlier in this series. But for now, we are going to be jumping into some more games in the future. Keep an eye out for part 2 of this series. And this is Sybert signing out. Thank you very much for watching.